In this video, we will be discussing about linked list implementation, right? So, what you have to do, you have to just write a code in which you can enter numbers like 5 and then 6 and then 7, and all in form of nodes. You can store them and you can have address of next node, and then you can again have address of the next node, right? You have to prepare a linked list using a code, right? So how you can do it, right? Suppose you have to create a head first, right? So each box head will point to the first box, right? And each box will have data and address of next node, right? And by doing in the process, when I will get my last node, that will have the address that will point to 0, right? That will not provide any address for any other another node, because that is my last node, right? Now you have to start the list. You have to make head first 0, right? And then keep adding nodes using while loop. Then you will ask user input, you will ask user to enter datas, right? And then you will create a new node using malloc function, right? And then you will set a new node, right? And then next equals to 0, right? So how you will, and while printing you have to traverse from head to the tail using a variable, right? You will print until the node's data will become 0 or temp become 0, right? So what you will do first, you will define data type, right? This is my data type. During this process no memory will be allocated, right? I have my data type struct, right? I have a node, right? Data is my first member of struct data type, and next is my second member, and this will point address to the other node, right? And then what I have, right, this data will store address of next data type, which is struct. This data will store address, this is pointer, which will store address of the next data type, same, which will be struct, right? And then I will declare my pointer and initialize head, right? I declare my first pointer head which will point address to my first node, then the pointer new node which will point address to my, which will be my, right, the address part of the nodes, and temp will first point to the first node, then will point to the second node, and then third node, right? So at the start my list will be empty, and head will store address of node which will of a struct data type, right? Then this is an infinite while loop. It will end only when you will enter 0, right? Here, right, if you will enter 0, then the while loop will be closed and the data will be printed, right? This you already know. This is what? This is malloc function. So what does a malloc function do? Malloc function returns pointer to the starting address of that memory, right? Here I have a node of size 8 bytes, 4 for this, and this part, the size of struct node, this will determine how much memory should be allocated, right? And this is for typecasting. This is my new node, right? So this is a pointer to a node, right? And this whole function will return pointer to the starting address of that memory, right? So what is happening, I am asking user to enter data, and through a scanf user is entering a data here, this is address, and by new node arrow data I am able to access my member of structure, right? What is happening? I took the pointer new node, right, of data type struct, and a pointer which will point to a data type struct, right, and at that address I have entered a value. So new node will then point, the address of new node will be next, which will be 0. Now if my head is 0, which is the first obvious case, my head will be equal to temp equal to new node. Temp is another variable I have declared which will point one by one first, second, third and last node, right? And then when I will enter my second data, then head is already allocated. Now we will go to else. Temp will point to the next, which will store new node, and then temp will be my new node. And then while printing, I will print temp pointing to data, and then temp will be next, right? So how it is going to happen, right? Suppose first user input is 5, right? Right. So there will be a node created 5 and null. Now head will point to this node, temp will also point to this node. Then I will enter 4. So what will happen? A node will be created again having 4 and here null. Now head will point still here, but the next part of this will point to this node, and my temp will also point towards this node, right? And then I enter 9, then a new node will be created which will have next part as null, and head will point still here, but temp will point this time here, right? And my right, and now 4 will point to the next node, right? So head is 0, it means it has no node. New node is very first node, right? This is my first new node, and then we make head and temp point to this node at beginning. Head points to the first node and temp also points to the first node. Now when I enter my second data, means list has already first node, then temp is currently pointing here, but we will make temp point to here, right? So how we did this? Where is my temp? Right, temp will point to the next, right, and that will be new node, right? It will point to the second node, right? This connects the last node to the new node, and we will move temp to new node because new node is new last node of the list, right? Now while printing, we want to print all these data, right? So what will happen? In my while loop, until my temp becomes 0, this part becomes 0, right? What will happen? Temp is pointing to first node, right? Inside while loop, each step we will print data, right? We will print data, and temp, using this temp arrow data, we are accessing to the data, to the members of the structure that we have declared initialized in the beginning, right? And then we have, this will keep happening until temp become nulls, and we will have to reach the end, and then we will have all numbers printed like this, right? So this was all about implementation of linked list, right? We will now discuss in the next video.